and welcome to FO Talks with me, Claire Whitaker. FO Talks is brought to you by Fair Observer, a platform for citizen journalism with about 3,000 contributors from over 90 different countries. And we'd love you to join the conversation. So please, if you can, during the Zoom call, put your questions or your comments in the chat box and we'll put them to our speaker. Today, we're joined by Professor Ellis Cashmore to make sense of our celebrity culture. But we're not just going to look at the latest gossip on Taylor Swift and Harry Styles. We're going to look at the origins of this phenomenon and look at the social, political and economic reasons why some people who may not even be famous for any particular reason occupy so much headspace. Professor Ellis Cashmore is the author of several books, books on Michael Jackson, on Elizabeth Taylor, and he's just brought out this third edition of Celebrity Culture, which explains why we still have celebrities, or why we do have celebrities, and what the meaning of it all is. So thanks very much for joining us today, Professor.
My pleasure, Claire.
So first off, let's just try and define our terms a little bit. What do we mean by celebrity culture?
It's a way of living in which many of our major social institutions, and I include politics, religion, as well as the economy in that, our individual attitudes, our values, the way in which we prioritize some things over others, generally our day-to-day practices, how all these are affected by figures who have risen to prominence, some would say undue prominence, because their prominence is not related proportionately, shall we say, to their accomplishments, their deeds. And historically, people who became established figures of renown or notoriety in some cases had really made their imprint on society and made themselves known through their deeds. That's not the case today. Now, I've been careful to say figures rather than human beings, and I choose my words carefully because celebrity culture is about our understanding, our conception, imaginative reconstructions of people who are celebrities. I'm not denying, obviously, that there is someone called Lizzo or Harry Styles and that Taylor Swift doesn't exist. Of course they do. They are flesh and blood people, but they're not celebrities. The celebrities are the products of our imaginations, and as such, they're independent of time and space, and they can be anything that we want them to be. And that's what really collectively are the constituent parts of celebrity culture, and its effect on all of us is undeniable.
Okay.
These figures,
I'm just going to jump in there because maybe we can kind of unpick the effect on us a little bit later.
You're going to get the book out of me.
Oh, well, absolutely. So let's just boil it down to examples, just so people understand what you mean in terms of celebrities being a bit of a fiction of our imagination. I just want to make the comparison between Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana. Yeah. How is it that one was famous and one was a celebrity? What was the difference there?
Well, I think they were both celebrities, first of all, in the sense that they both emerged at a time. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Diana emerged at a time where celebrity culture was coming into being, and she hastened that culture, I should say. She wasn't simply carried along, swept along by celebrity culture. She catalyzed celebrity culture. Queen Elizabeth emerged to prominence, obviously, much earlier in the century, in the 20th century, and was very much, I suppose, a character of two parts. The first part of her life was conducted imperiously as someone who was untouchable in the eyes of many people, and really existed on an elevated level, a level above most people. She wasn't a celebrity until Diana came along. And I think what Diana did was humanize royalty, the royal family generally. I think she humanized in a way that made people pinch themselves and think, hang on, these people, they're royals, but they are like us. They have the same kind of faults and foibles.
So is that one of the key ingredients to being, sorry to interrupt, but is that one of the key ingredients to being a celebrity, the fact that you're someone like us that we can relate to? Is that one of the kind of parts of the magic sauce?
Well, that's part of the transition to celebrity culture, the people that we, and I'm choosing this word carefully, worshipped, and I don't necessarily mean in the religious sense, but someone who was an object of our adulation on high, larger than life characters, how they came down to earth. Not just the Hollywood stars or royalty, but everyone came crashing down to earth, which is no bad thing. I'm not saying, that this was kind of a destructive feat, but that our affection for celebrities is really grounded in the fact that they're ordinary, this quality of ordinariness. Now, if I may return to Queen Elizabeth just briefly, she certainly wasn't ordinary, but people did begin to understand that she was just a human being after all. And that's what I mean by the second part of her career. She began, I'm sure she hated it, but she began to be forcibly morphed into a celebrity. And I think royals are celebrities nowadays. I suppose the epitome of this is Harry. But I think all royals now are, in a sense, fair game for us.
Let me just try and understand, what makes a famous person a celebrity? What is that sort of leap?
We, the rest of us, you and I and everybody who's looking at this and listening at the moment, turns them into celebrities.
It's us that turn a normal person into a famous person.
Well,
so I see the
hang on. Let's not call them normal. I'm not sure I don't think anybody's normal. I never met a normal person. We're all in some way abnormal. But if there's someone in the supermarket that I bump into later today and strike up a conversation with them, and I might talk about football or the COVID inquiry or what's going on in Gaza. Everyday topics might get through a menu with that person. And next week, that person might show up on a reality TV show and win it. And within a month, that person is a celebrity because he or she is known to the nation and perhaps beyond the UK, and then becomes a different kind of entity because that person will occupy a place in people's minds. They become an object of our imaginations, in other words.
Okay. I still don't fully understand the distinction, but I'm sure we can kind of flesh it out later.
Okay,
from the reading of your book, I understand that basically if a famous person does something interesting, like their life is a bit of a soap opera and the media's interested, that seems to be what tips the balance, and then they become...
It doesn't even have to be that interesting, Claire, as long as we take notice. I mean, it could be quite everyday and uninteresting. I mean, they might show up on Strictly on Saturday nights and we think, who's that? I haven't seen this person before. I thought they're meant to be celebrities. And yet we get to know them through their dancing on Saturday nights and the interviews that they give. And we kind of start getting interested in them, not because they've done anything special, but because we take to them. So we make them interesting. They don't have to be interesting in an objective sense. I'm not sure quite what makes anybody interesting in an objective way. Our perceptions of them make them interesting, and that converts them into celebrities.
All right. Well, you mentioned a TV.
Even if it's only for a short time, it could be the duration of the series on TV.
And then you forget.
They go off screen, we forget about them.
Yeah. So you mentioned Strictly Come Dancing on TV, which is a UK sort of celebrity dance program. Just tell us a little bit about the role the media plays in all this, because clearly that's super duper important in terms of turning an ordinary person into a famous person and into a celebrity. So just tell us what role the media plays, but also how that's changed over time with the advent of social media.
Okay. The media, obviously, as I think everybody who's listening to us now will realize, is pivotal. That's implicit in everything that I'm saying, because we don't get to hear or see anybody unless we see them on our screens. When I say screens, I don't necessarily mean TV screens. On our computers and our phones, they appear as screen phenomena. So obviously, it is in the past, it was traditional media, and we did rely on movies, and then from the 1950s on television. And as you quite rightly point out, those kinds of media have proliferated in recent years, so that we all have our personal media. I'm obviously thinking of our phones, first of all, our own personal media. We carry celebrities around with us in our pockets, in a sense, because they're always at hand. We can summon them to our screens. So you're asking a big question here, by the way, how the conversion from traditional to social media, how that has affected celebrity culture. Well, at the start of the century, the early years up to 2008, when the growth of social media started, some people, and I'm thinking of the likes of Paris Hilton, first of all, and her mentee, as she then was, Kim Kardashian, realized that the media were not just a presence in society, but a force, in the sense that it actually didn't really make that much difference what you did or said, as long as the media take notice of you. Paris was the first to pick up on this. And of course, it's a put down, I know, but it's actually quite accurate when people said she's famous for being famous. Actually, she wasn't just famous for being famous. She was famous for appearing. Her presence was gratifying. And before everybody jumps down the throat and says, don't be ridiculous, it was. Otherwise, why did people take so much notice of Paris Hilton? And the riposte is usually because the media trailed her around absolutely everywhere 24/7. To which my reply is, why did the media trail her? Because we had the appetite. The media were working as our proxy. Kim Kardashian comes along and realizes this is just one phase. I can actually make this better, or if not better, I can multiply it. Because these newfangled things called, what are they, Twitter or something like that, let me see if I can get a piece of this action. And of course, she exploited that fantastically, in a way which no one else could possibly, well, they could have figured it out, I suppose, but no one executed it quite so expertly as Kim Kardashian.
Well, you mentioned those two, obviously, in your book.
To prominence.
And I thought it was fascinating that
talking about Kim and the family in the book.
Well, absolutely. And I thought it was fascinating that Kim Kardashian was actually paid by Paris Hilton initially to sort out her wardrobe. And then she ended up sort of overshadowing.
What Paris didn't realize is that Kim was taking notes all the time.
Literally notes.
Well, no, I don't think she probably was.
Probably with her phone.
No, let's put it that way.
Wow.
I don't know what the relationship is like between the two of them now, but Kim certainly stole some of Paris's ideas, would that be? Intuitions, insights. Paris stumbled across them, I think. I don't think she quite understood why she was becoming so prominent. But when she started, boy, did she learn fast.
Yeah.
And then Kim was her friend, and it was obviously, if not taking notes, it was going in, let's put it that way.
So with the advent of social media, is it possible now to sort of turn yourself into a celebrity?
Not without the help of without the help of a legion of people who are interested. I mean, if someone wanted to put them, I'm sure this happens every second of every day. Someone who wants to do exactly as you've suggested, turn themselves into a celebrity, goes online and posts not just pictures of themselves, but videos, and tries to get attention. And I would think that the percentage failure is in the order of about 10 million to 1 or something like that.
Absolutely.
Not many people say. Every so often you do see someone who pulls off a stunt, which you think everyone thinks is so crazy that they deserve a bit of attention. And they will get that prominence, and people will talk about them and view the video, but probably for 24 hours.
Yeah.
They're not stayers, in other words. But then again, the turnover rate in celebrity culture is quite fantastic. I mean, I'll bite my tongue there. I shouldn't say no one, but not that many people have the staying power to remain in our imaginations.
You talk about Madonna, don't you? Because she's one of those that's obviously lasted for decades amazingly and has adapted to each period and almost sort of invited, interest in her private life. So I suppose there are some celebrities that really have enough of it and others that totally invite it in.
I think they all have to now. I think maybe 20 years ago, people had that choice. And the choice was a kind of a bargain, I suppose, Faustian bargain, if you like. You sacrifice your private life and you become famous. If you want a private life and keep it to yourself, forget it. It's not going to happen.
So someone like Elizabeth Taylor had that choice, and you're saying
she did have the choice in the 1950s and 60s, of course, and she chose to make that sacrifice. Obviously, the media weren't as rabid as they often are today, but they were still interested enough, traditional media back then, of course, they were still interested enough to follow her around and try and intrude on her private life. And I think probably because of her background in movies, she was a child star, of course, so she'd lived her life in front of a camera and she knew the arts and crafts and the guiles. She's an old head on young shoulders, as people say. And so I think by the time she was a teenager, she probably knew the media inside out and knew how to work them. And so I think she just assimilated life without privacy. And she was quite comfortable, it seems, at least, in that. And so when it came to that kind of crossroads and she thought, well, am I going to invite the media into my life or am I going to exclude them? And if I exclude them, will they go off me, which they probably would have done? She decided, no, let them come in. They can take a look around and they can ask me whatever questions they like. Some of them I might even answer honestly. Others I may just lie. So she played a game with the media in that sense.
So tell me, you're a professor of sociology. Why does all this stuff matter? I mean, obviously we love reading about celebrities, but why does it matter in a sort of societal context?
Because it's inescapable and it is a defining aspect of culture today. And I know people at my gym, they know my interests and they'll say, all this celebrity stuff, I'm not a bit interested in it. It doesn't affect me. But of course, they can't get away from the fact that it does.
But how does it affect them, apart from them seeing these faces on billboards or on TV or wherever? How does it affect them?
Well, it affects them we can establish a kind of a hierarchy of ways in which it affects them. I think the top of that hierarchy is it affects the way they spend their money. And I don't think we can disentangle celebrity culture from consumer culture. And this is something that I was going to get onto, but let's get into it right now, because celebrity culture is about a life in which we habitually spend money, not necessarily on functional items that we need, but things that we want and are encouraged to buy by, guess who? Celebrities. Maybe they're not overt in endorsing products, but we do things that celebrities also do. And I'm careful how I phrase this because I don't. People often say that celebrities are there to sell us stuff. They are in a way, but I don't think it's so deliberate or as obviously crudely intentional. I think celebrities are advertisements for a way of life, a way of life in which we are gratified, comforted, rewarded by owning items, commodities, things that we see advertised on TV, or just simply around us in the gym, in stores, in pubs, in bars, things that we see and are attracted to and think we'll buy them. And I know people say that this is a tremendously negative turn in contemporary society. And for them it is that it kind of replaces spiritual matters. And they see that as something that is quite a detrimental development. I don't necessarily see it that way. I think whatever reward.
But do they fill a spiritual hole in our lives then? It's not just about buying their
replacement, Claire, rather than filling a void or anything like that. You know, I think it's a swap. Right, I know what you're getting at. That as we have become a more secular culture, that religion has dropped in its significance to our day-to-day lives, and celebrities have filled that void. I don't buy that argument. I think that there has been a kind of as we have become more preoccupied with things, consumable items that we can buy from stores or online, and as we are encouraged to buy more, I think that there is this feeling amongst some people that we have let the spiritual life ebb away. As I say, I don't buy this idea particularly because, you know, I'm not quite sure exactly what a spiritual life is. And if the critics are saying that the spiritual life is rooted in traditional religion, then maybe they're right, that there is evidence that fewer and fewer people go to church and worship traditionally. But I think that
well, you give the example in your book.
Tell us to do stuff. There is spirit. Madonna, in particular, has.
And you give the example of a teenager in their bedroom, you know, looking at posters on their walls and sort of talking to them, like the girl in Bend It Like Beckham. Yeah, so there is an element.
As you know, I use that
hero worshipping
example. When I saw that film, I was writing a book. That's what got me started writing about celebrity culture, really. A publisher asked me to write a book on David Beckham. Not Beckham as a footballer, but Beckham as a new type of being and a celebrity par excellence in many ways, you know, globally. So I got into that, and I remember the scene in that movie that you're referring to. And I'm not sure whether Gurinder Chadha, the director, meant it like this, but it certainly it certainly registered with me. The central character in the movie, for those of our viewers who haven't seen it, has difficulty talking about expressing her emotions, even to her close friends or her family, and yet she can go home at night and she has a picture of David Beckham on her wall, and she can fess up and you know, share her most intimate secrets with this poster. Now, it's an inanimate object on her wall, but this goes back to my earlier point about celebrities not being people, but in our imaginations. So she has created an imaginary Beckham.
It's an imaginary friend.
She can confess everything.
Yeah,
and I think many of it's one scene in a movie, and it's obviously several years old now. But I do think it strikes a chord even today, because I think that that's what people do.
Okay, so you talked about how celebrities encourage us to buy certain things.
Yeah.
They also make us vote a certain way, because I was thinking about the importance of celebrity in politics. So you've got people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was governor of California. Oprah Winfrey was talked about as a presidential candidate. And then if you look at Argentina and Ukraine, those presidents are former actors and comedians. So how important is that now in our politics?
Okay, you painted me into a bit of a corner here. So I've got to answer this in two ways. The first thing is I think we tend to overestimate how influential celebrities are in all aspects of our life. They're very good and effective when it comes to get us parting with our hard-earned cash. I don't think they're so effective when they tell us how to vote. Maybe that will change, and maybe we will start taking more notice if a celebrity says, you don't want to vote for A, try putting your vote in the ballot box for B. Maybe that will change. So I'm going to be open-minded enough to say that's in flux. But when it comes to celebrities being elected as politicians, I think that's a different question. It's related, but it's a different question. And what I mean by that is that we live at a time when, as I said in my opening remarks, when you asked me to define what celebrity culture is, it does affect politics. And that means that celebrities, people who are famous, but not necessarily for their leadership or their administration in political office, or for anything related to politics, can still earn a reputation. And if people warm to that reputation, if they respond to it in a positive way, then I think that it's perfectly, I don't have to say, I think it is perfectly possible for them to gain election. And I think obviously the case of Donald Trump is a case study in its own right. Trump never had any political experience before he was elected president. He never occupied political office at all. Now, there were examples in American history of people who were elected with some, but not a lot of political experience, but Trump had none. So I do think it is possible for a person who is popular to be elected on popularity alone. And looking into the future, I mean, you mentioned Kim Kardashian, or we talked about Kim Kardashian earlier. I wouldn't put it past her to move into politics.
What does it stand for election?
And Taylor Swift, I think, is a cert over the next couple of decades to enter politics. So I think there are a number of people now who are just popular for their music. And well, with Taylor, it's a bit more than music, of course. She has become a kind of an all-purpose celebrity. I think that it will be perfectly feasible for them to transfer into politics and gain election without political experience.
Well, indeed. So I'm thinking of Arnold Schwarzenegger because I recently watched that documentary about his life. I don't know if you've seen it, the sort of 3-part piece where
Schwarzenegger or Beckham?
Pardon?
Are we talking about Schwarzenegger or Beckham?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
And being known seemed to be really half the battle in terms of getting elected. People know your name.
Absolutely.
They're much more likely to vote for you.
That's right.
So it's a much more powerful thing than even having, the best politics you can think of. It's actually just having your name in people's heads is actually a very powerful thing.
If he were eligible, and of course he isn't because he wasn't born in the United States, I'm quite
Oh, absolutely. He would stand
sure that
president.
Schwarzenegger would be in the White House.
Yeah.
If not now, would probably have been and gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, you mentioned Trump, and that brings to mind another point, which is that it almost doesn't matter whether somebody is known for positive reasons or negative reasons. Notoriety can be as powerful, can't it, as, being known for your accomplishments.
Yeah. It really doesn't matter. I'm asked this question quite a lot. People say, well, what happens? People can't actually, like this person. But it doesn't really matter to be a celebrity as long as you provoke emotion, strong emotions in all of us. You're in business. If people start feeling strongly about you, or if you don't arouse something in them, you're on the road to oblivion. You're not going to last a lot long because the worst thing that can happen to a celebrity is that people stop caring. But whether they love you or hate you doesn't make much difference. As long as you excite a passion in people, and practically everybody we've spoken about so far today does excite passions in us, and that's why they're celebs.
Okay. Another recent figure that's been talked about lately is Oscar Pistorius, who obviously was initially famous for being an incredible Paralympian, but then became infamous after he shot his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp several years ago. So again, do you feel that he's become more of a celebrity since this terrible event, because he's now known for, there's now notoriety involved as well?
Definitely.
Does that make somebody more?
He was quite well known in sports circles before, of course. And I'm a sports fan, and I write on sports, as you know. So he was a renowned athlete, a tremendous athlete as well, by the way. And of course, he came to fame on that platform. But of course, his audience multiplied when he was accused of murder, and initially prosecuted and found guilty of the equivalent of the South African.
It's called culpable homicide, isn't it?
Manslaughter.
Manslaughter.
Which was later changed to murder, of course. And of course, then it becomes an altogether different narrative. This is a world famous Paralympian, who ran on prosthetic blades, which was an interesting enough story in its own right, and then kills his supermodel partner in the home, and says it was a case of, and I won't go through the whole
the mistaken identity,
the trial again, but he said it was. He shot in panic because he thought there was an intruder in the dwelling, and she was in the bathroom with the door closed, and he said he inadvertently shot her, but that was later found not to be the case in court. And of course, there was this globally televised trial in which people who were not interested in track and field at all, never watched 100 meters race in their life, suddenly got interested because it's a murder case, and murder cases.
What is this, because we are intrigued by murder, or is this because we like to see the rise and fall of these famous people?
Combination. As I say, he had the platform initially, but the fact that he was a world famous athlete really commanded the attention of the world's media, who all then went to South Africa, and we got a daily diet of the court case on our TVs, certainly in the UK and elsewhere in the world. And day by day, people became more aware of Pistorius, and he became, as you said earlier, notorious. And notoriety, of course, is a pretty useful fuel if you want to become a celebrity. Sure, he didn't want to, certainly not in that way.
Are there some people, though, who've sort of sought notoriety and gone too far and sort of almost been shunned by the public for that?
It does happen, doesn't it? Wasn't there a case of a guy who... I don't think it's in this edition of the book. It may be an earlier one, but shot himself through a book. I better not go too far with this one because I can't remember the details.
But the point is, you can't even remember his name, which just goes to prove our point.
This guy was here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing.
Right.
But it made a lot of news at the time because he wanted the exposure, he wanted the publicity. And of course, people do this all the time now. They risk their lives and get someone to film them so that they can upload it.
But I'm thinking more of someone like Madonna, and you talk about her extensively in your book and how she really pushed the boundaries with some of her songs and some of the things she said. And sometimes you wonder if she might have gone too far, but she always seemed to be rewarded for any kind of, controversy that she sparked.
Yeah, I would call her the first expert in celebrity culture in that sense, because like Princess Diana, she was another catalytic character who pushed the matter along and brought celebrity culture closer. In Madonna's case, I do think she had a kind of a crystal ball. I can't see how she figured it out otherwise, because she must be the most prescient pop star in history. she somehow was always one move ahead of the media and gave the media stuff that they didn't even realize they wanted. So at a time in history where this traditional divide between the private and the public selves was still, I won't say religiously observed, but it was still recognized by the media, and they knew not to tread over that invisible line. Madonna said, well, there is a membrane between the private and the public life, but what the hell? Let's shred it.
What the hell? Throw it away.
You can, all quarters are available. You can talk to me about whatever. And I think initially the media couldn't quite figure out what is this, strange creature here. She's obviously a pop singer and sells records and wants to sell more, no doubt. And she is vaguely talented and her music is quite good, but exceptional. I mean, I'm not knocking Madonna. Well, I am, I suppose, in a way, because to my ears, she doesn't sound that fantastic. But of course, you don't buy Madonna for that, just the music. You buy the whole package. This is a woman who, in a sense, revolutionized celebrity culture by inviting the media in. And I think as the media got used to her, they thought this is a different, very, very unusual kind of character, because she isn't enforcing that traditional division between the public and the private. She is it. This is her. We have access, full access to every part of her life. Now, we don't know for sure. Let's not kid ourselves that she was completely open about it, but it certainly was a plausible expression of that.
You perhaps let them in enough areas that it just placates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was easy enough to buy into this idea that Madonna was a new kind of being, that a pop star who had no private life. I'm sure she did, but that,
okay, just to move the discussion on a little bit from Madonna, one of the big kind of talking points, if you like, when it comes to celebrity culture, according to your book, is this idea of when did it all start? And you quote some people who say it started back in the Bronze Age, and other people who say, oh no, it started in, I don't know, maybe with Elizabeth Taylor. You say it's a much more recent phenomena. So just your theory on that.
I'm a sociologist, first of all. So we tend to look at situations, social conditions, which are ever changing, of course, and how particular contexts give rise to things and events and developments such as celebrity culture. It can be done. I'm sure, a capable historian, and there are a great many of them, have said, well, there are compelling similarities between celebrity culture today and in the 18th century and way back into antiquity. And there are credible accounts of that. And I suppose, I'm quite prepared to allow that there are similarities. But for me, that's a prehistory. The history of celebrity culture, I think, probably starts in the late 20th century. I think Elizabeth Taylor, as you pointed out earlier, was a precursor. And I am interested in Elizabeth Taylor, as you pointed out. I've written a book on her, and I do think she was a crucial figure in pushing celebrity culture forward, if she was interested in doing that herself. But I think your earlier mention of Madonna is a convenient starting point, because with Madonna, things did change. Now, there are two possible ways of looking at this, and that is that Madonna just looked around her, figured out what was going on very quickly, and thought, I'm taking a piece of this, and capitalized on it fantastically well. She's still around today, of course, and still selling out and making records. The other is that Madonna was a product of a particular constellation of circumstances, which is the preference that I favor. That she was just not that we produced, but we did in a certain way produce Madonna, but she was canny enough to cotton on to what was happening, the changes that were happening around that time, She couldn't have foreseen the rise of reality TV. She couldn't have foreseen the rise of social media. She couldn't have seen how someone like Kim Kardashian, that we mentioned earlier, without any ostensible talent, not knocking Kim, but, not in a traditional sense, could emerge as such an extravagantly lionized figure in contemporary culture. She couldn't have seen these things, but somehow she learned so quickly that
you're putting it back to what, the 90s or the early 2000s?
Well, Madonna emerged in the 1980s, of course. It goes back before that. But I think that the changes in Madonna, perhaps not changes, extensions of the way Madonna conducted her professional life were probably more pronounced in the 1990s and into the 21st century. Okay. And she isn't nowadays. You look back on Madonna and you think, well, what was so?
Yeah, it seems quite normal now, doesn't it?
Big deal.
Yeah.
But nobody remembers that was at the time where we had a much more sedate culture and people weren't exposing themselves or simulating masturbation on stage and stuff like that. But Madonna did exactly those things.
And then Britney Spears was her mentor, her mentee, I should say, I suppose. Okay, so look into your crystal ball. Where is celebrity culture going next? You mentioned the idea that someone like Taylor Swift could stand for election. What else are we going to see?
I do think we're going to see the likes of... I think Taylor will probably transfer into politics. I do think that there will be more of the current generation of celebrities today who are not known for their political prowess or knowledge, but I think that they will transfer into politics. So I do think we will see the political sphere populated by people who are not politicians, but maybe rock stars, maybe movie stars, maybe models, so and so, or maybe just social media phenomena like the Kardashians. So I think we'll see that as one development. I don't see any flagging in our interest in celebrities. I used to be asked this question quite a lot. How long is this going to last for? And I said, well, I don't see any signs of an end or even a fork in the road anytime soon. And I still don't. So I think that our fascination with celebrities will go on. We may become a bit more discerning, but who knows, maybe we won't get so discerning after all. I do think that the shoppable life, as some people call it, and I referred earlier to how we become avid consumers in not recent decades, actually, it started in the 20th century, but hyper consumers, shall I call us, today. I think this will continue. And I wouldn't call it the elephant in the room, but I know a lot of my critics will say, hang on, Cashmore's been talking for the best part of how long we've been talking to him. He hasn't mentioned capitalism yet. And he's a sociologist. Well, it isn't anything deliberate, but I think implicit in everything that I've said about the rise of celebrity culture and its association with our consumer habits.
Yeah, you mentioned
this is related to capitalism in the sense that obviously this is a phase in capitalism, and I don't think you have to be a dyed-in-the-wool Marxist to figure that part out. The economy has to run somehow, and one of the ways it runs today, certainly in the West, and I think elsewhere also, is by making us by inducing us to buy stuff. And so that makes celebrity culture a perfect complement, because that's what celebrity culture does encourage us to do, to buy things that I was going to say that we don't need. But
as long as there's big business backing them and encouraging them, I don't see any ending.
That's why they get paid,
Okay, I think we're going to have to wind things up now, unless there's any more you'd like to mention that you feel we haven't touched on.
No, I think I haven't come with an agenda. I've just come to answer good questions.
There's not a particular celebrity you want to mention that hasn't been brought up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So before we go, let me just do a quick plug for Fair Observer. FO Talks is brought to you by Fair Observer, which is a platform for citizen journalism with about 3,000 contributors from over 90 different countries. And we'd love you to join the conversation. So please do sign up for our newsletter. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow us on social media. And of course, you can publish with us. So thanks very much to you. And thank you very much, Professor, as well, for your help today.
My pleasure, Claire.
Okay, all the best.
Bye.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.